Hello, welcome back. Another live stream. I'm a little bit late, but not hugely late. There's this particular section of the lesson, Wave Echo Cave. It requires significantly more setup, and although I wouldn't say the notes for part one are hugely complicated and really long, the setup is more complicated, and you'll find that what you're seeing right now is not to scale. And for anybody who's thought that they would be able to print this map to scale for their games, you won't. It's not really feasible. It's impractical. And so my suggestion to you is make sure you grab your pen and pencil or some paper and make some notes if you need to. I'm going to go through quite a lot of information. The intention is to go over stuff you haven't come across before rather than stuff that's already in the adventure or stuff you have come across on the internet, although that may happen from time to time. I'm going to put up a poll for those of you who are interested. And hi, how's it going, MIRP? And how's it going, Cowboy? There is a poll going. Feel free to take part. You can't change your vote. So Cowboy Bigfoot, how's it going? Right, so my sound seems to be working fine, so we're going to get onto this. I do have slides for you today, and we will be coming back to this, obviously, for Q&A and some demonstration, because that is what I have promised, and that is what I will deliver, and that's the intention for this lesson. So make sure you have some food, some drink, make sure you are comfortable, and I will do my very best to cover as much as I possibly can. Kunchy245, Kunchy is actually a patron and helps support the channel and it's running, and to ensure that these classes continue, and I do thank you for that. And all, of course, the notes for this class will be on Patreon. Dantemain 365 gaming. Hello. Okay, let me get going, because there's the more time I spend fiddling around, the less time you can ask questions and the less time we have with demonstration, and I do want to do that. So let's make sure I actually get that covered for those of you who need that, because that's why you just came here in the first place, right? Okay. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller, and today I'm going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons 5e. The topic for today is actually a online tutorial, a Dungeon Master tutorial on the Lost Mine of Phandelver. This runs every single week, and this is Lesson 6, Wave Echo Cave, Part 1. Wave Echo Cave is so large, I do need to break it up into two parts. It would be impractical to try and run it as a single lesson, so I have put it into two parts. We will be going over areas 1 to 10, and of course there's a little bit of setup required for this as well, and so I will be covering that as well, because you will need that. Otherwise we're going to have some problems. So what am I going to be covering today in this lesson? Well, the intention today is to try to cover the bits and pieces that you require. So the overview is finding Wave Echo Cave. I'm going to talk about the Wandering Monster table. I'm going to talk about the cave entrance and the Rock Seeker campsite in particular. There is going to be a section for the mining tunnels that has the lurking ochre jelly, and then the old entrance has some hungry sturges. I'm going to focus a lot on those areas. I'm also going to be talking about the old guard room with the skeleton horde, the assayers office, which is basically that's where you do all the counting of money, okay? That's where you sort of collect everything up. The south barracks, and then we're going to cover the ruined storeroom, the fungi cavern, that'll be a lot of fun, the great cavern, and the dark pool. And then, of course, we'll have to come back another week to cover part 2, because that's only half of this location. It's a very large dungeon, and so this location I have broken up into two pieces. I'm going to explain everything, so finding Wave Echo Cave, managing the monsters, the wandering monsters, what monsters are important to roleplay, exploring Wave Echo Cave, and how the monster encounters can be run by a dungeon master. So there will be some demonstration. I will not be able to demonstrate absolutely everything. And the intention, but I will not be able to do that today, is that I will be able to allow in the future people to practice or play through with me so they get a bit of practice before they have to actually dungeon master this thing. But YouTube doesn't facilitate that sort of thing at this point, so as a result of that, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer, but I feel confident that we will get to a point where we can do that. The D&D Beyond now has the Lost Mine of Phandelver. The entire adventure is digital. It's available to everybody for free. You can get the adventure. You can get all of the high-resolution maps, which means you can then print them out like I have to scale. In some cases, not to scale, because you can't really print out Wave Echo Cave to scale. It's a huge map. You wouldn't have a dining room table big enough for this thing. So the map that you will be seeing today is not actually to scale because it wouldn't fit on my desk. Even in pieces, it still wouldn't work. I did think about it. You will find all of the stat blocks online available for this adventure as well. So if you want to get them off D&D Beyond, you can. And there is, of course, you'll find a lot of the images and artwork which you might want to use during the adventure, including monsters and other bits and pieces. Now, Wave Echo Cave, as you can tell, is quite a large location. As a dungeon goes, it probably couldn't get much bigger for a modern dungeon. I mean, if we're talking about older dungeons, it was not unknown to see locations that had anywhere from 40 to 50 places that you could go. This has about 20. Well, it does have 20. And so it's quite large for a modern dungeon. So let's cover the aspects of this adventure which you're probably going to need first when running this thing. And that is finding Wave Echo Cave. Like, how do we get the player characters there? There's a couple of different ways. I have listed them for you. The first one, if you can get hold of Gundren Rockseeker's map to Wave Echo Cave, that would be probably a good way of getting there. You'll find that the map is mentioned on page 41 of the adventure. Or you could, if you can find Gundren and he's alive, Gundren Rockseeker knows how to get to the mining cave, obviously. Any of the doppelgangers know the location, as they work for Nesnar the Black Spider. And then also King Groll has seen the map, so he knows how to get to the cave as well. He would probably have memorized its location. Rudolph the Druid can take the party to the cave for a favor. You won't do it for free. You do have to do something. You don't have to pay money, but you may have to deal with a dragon. It's not really the best way to get them there, but okay, it's there. There's also Agatha the Banshee, knows the location of the cave, but the player characters need a valuable piece of jewelry to convince her to answer a question. And you probably don't want to wind up derailing the existing quest or adventure for her, so you may need to find yourself another piece of jewelry to do this with. And I will kind of talk about this in the future, maybe not so much today. And then lastly, the bugbears in the Red Brand hideout that work for Nesnar would also know where the cave is. Like, they should know the location. So you've got quite a few different ways you can steer them in the right direction, even if they botch things up and wind up killing the wrong individuals, which is entirely possible because that's kind of what players do from time to time. But anyway, now that you have a list of different ways you can get them there, let's talk about the Wandering Monster table, because there's a lot of advice around how to use that. Wandering Monster tables are often mistaken for a random encounter table, which they're actually a very different thing. A Wandering Monster table is quite small, and you will notice in the adventure there aren't that many options available. It's quite a short list. It's not like 20 options. A random monster table is very much like 20 options or more. You could even have 100 different options, but that's more likely it's going to be a 20-sided dice roll to do that. In this case, you don't have that. But one of the problems with this adventure and the use of the Wandering Monster table is you kind of get given too much. And I will explain why. I would suggest to you removing the Grick, the zombies, and the skeletons, because these monsters don't really wander around. And the table has too many different types of monsters anyway. Now, first off, I will say yes, a Grick can wander. I would say to you though, given this location, there's probably not going to be that many Gricks living here. And the other thing is, a Grick is a very boring monster to encounter when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. It just doesn't have mechanically interesting things going on. It's a lot of hit points, and it's got a beak attacker, basically. And that's really about it. Okay? But the zombies and the skeletons, unless pre-programmed, don't normally go on patrol. They just stay in one location until food ventures their way, or they hear something they think they could go and eat. And they're not going to be able to hear diddly squat in Wave Echo Cave because there's a lot of noise in here. So that's why I'm suggesting that you might want to just ditch them from the Wandering Monster table. What I will say is that the ghoul is potentially the better wandering monster to use in Wave Echo Cave. I know some people might be thinking, well, what about the bugbears? Well, I suppose you could. The only problem is it's a dangerous location, so I don't think they would be setting up a patrol in a location they haven't fully secured. Whereas ghouls will wander around looking for food. They have a very different set of pre-programmed behaviours compared to other undead, and so they make much more sensible wandering monsters in this case. Now, I'm not suggesting that you keep using the same wandering monster all the time. I'm just suggesting to you that maybe you select the wandering monster that you want, that would make sense, that is going to work for you, rather than just do whatever, the dice tells you. If the player characters take a short or long rest inside Wave Echo Cave, then I would select or randomly roll, if you want, for a wandering monster, and I wouldn't even roll the d20 to determine if they actually get a wandering monster. If they take a short rest or a long rest that's way too long to be staying in this location, I would ignore anything that you really see in the adventure. Like, the idea is to stop them from taking a short rest or a long rest in here unless they select the right place to rest. Okay, there is a place where it actually makes sense for them to rest because you can fortify it, whereas everything else is not fortifiable. It would make more sense for them to leave Wave Echo Cave, find a safe and secure place away from the cave itself, and then take their short or long rest, rather than doing so inside the cave. And this is something you want to train your players to do, because if you don't start them now, they won't get it later on. So that's why I'm suggesting it. Pardon me, I just need some water. Okay, so let's continue on. We've got some different locations to show you, so we will do that. Here we go. Right, Area 1, the cave entrance. Now, if Gundren is with the party, he can be played as like emotional and wanting to take Theoden back to town, or even continue with the group to rescue Nundro. Like when Gundren finds his dead brother, it would probably be an emotional time for him. So by all means, feel free to play that out when you're running Gundren. If he's with the party, he may not be. But it's also fine to have him return to town with the body of his brother and let the group continue on trying to rescue Nundro, or he decides that he will travel with the party to rescue Nundro. Again, these are all up to you. It will depend on your players and you and what you think you can manage. What happens if the characters don't want to take the dead dwarf's boots of striding and springing? And they might do this out of respect for Gundren's murdered brother. Like, if Gundren is there, or they are friends, supposed to be friends with Gundren, they may decide that they don't really want to touch the boots and strip them off the body of the dead dwarf, just because it seems sacrilegious. This is actually fine. It doesn't really matter, because ultimately in the end, whether it happens now or later, the Rockseeker brothers that are still alive are probably going to gift the boots to the party member or party members later on anyway. So you don't need to worry about them losing out on this piece of treasure, because they won't lose out on it. They'll just get it at a different time. I know this is a question that popped up, and I've seen other people have to deal with it, so I thought I would discuss it here. Another thing I want to just quickly discuss too is, like, what are those dwarven supplies? Like, there's sort of an indication there's a lot of different dwarven supplies that you could find here, but there's really nothing highlighted in the adventure, probably because it would take up way too much space. So I've made up a list of things that I think potentially you might want to include that they could find and the player characters could then use, or they may simply just consider them supplies for later on after you've finished your adventure and you move on to other things. Who knows? I'm going to mark down there. This is my list. You don't have to follow it. 4 sacks of flour, 2 bags of salt, 4 casks of salted meat, 3 bull's eye lanterns, 6 flasks of lamp oil, 3 pickaxes, 3 shovels, 1 abacus, 4 empty barrels. Empty barrels do have a use. 3 bedrolls, 4 buckets, a box of 20 candles, a box of 10 pieces of chalk, 4 lengths of 50-foot hemp rope. If you want it to be silk, you can. 2 crowbars, a grappling hook, 3 hammers, 2 sledgehammers, a hunting trap, a mess kit, that's for cooking meals and so forth, a box of 10 pitons, a 10-foot pole, 3 signal whistles, a box of 20 bars of soap, 10 iron spikes, tinderbox, a box of 20 torches, 2 tents, 3 water skins, and a whetstone. Now, why have I included these items? These are things that potentially your characters could use in this location that would be quite useful. Not all of them will be obvious because it would require a little bit of imagination on the part of your players, but they do have a use. They make sense that they would be here. They are the sorts of things you would find in a dwarven mining camp. Like, that's why I've selected them specifically. Any of these things that you like, keep them. Anything you don't like, you leave them out. That's how it works. Right. Area 2. This Area 2 is the mine tunnels. The mine tunnels themselves aren't particularly complicated. They just seem like they're complicated when you're looking at it. The ochre jelly that is meant to stalk the player characters is not particularly stealthy. It's not a stealth monster, but it would be lurking on the ceiling waiting to drop down onto a lone character if that ever occurs. It's not going to go attacking the entire party. That would be silly. That's not really how an ochre jelly works. But if somebody separates from the group and tries to go scouting or gets left behind, that's a different story. Then the monster would attack. What I will say about the ochre jelly is this monster may never get used. It's not something that you always utilize in your game simply because it doesn't make sense to do so. An ochre jelly can go unnoticed in darkness or even in dim light, even if a player character has dark vision. The thing to remember is it's very easy for a creature to hide in darkness with pretty much anybody. Okay, dim light, again, you don't have perfect vision in dim light, even if you have dark vision. The only problem is the ochre jelly would be easy, very, very easy to spot in bright light if the player characters look up. If they look up and they're in bright light because they're carrying a lantern or a torch, which they probably will, then they're going to give the ochre jelly doesn't really have a chance. It's going to be spotted, even if it does try to stalk them from a distance. Asking players for a marching order for the maze section with all the passageways is mostly to help determine who is in the front or the back of the group. Now, the passageway itself is 10 feet wide. It's not actually 5 foot wide, so that means you can go 2 abreast if you wanted to, but the idea is to try to determine who is in the front and who is in the back of the group when deciding who gets to make a perception check or apply passive perception for noticing that ooze, and also who is likely to get ambushed by the ochre jelly. That's the only reason to be tracking the marching order for this location, frankly. trying to use a hand-drawn, I'm going to suggest try using a hand-drawn sketch or a mini-map of the maze, like tunnels, like just to help the player characters track their position so they don't get confused. Now, I know a lot of people have sort of suggested that you could use a dice roll to duplicate the maze effect. I think that's not necessary. It's not that big that it warrants that. But you can draw a very simple line drawing to give them an idea of where they've been and where they can go next. And that's it. That's all you're trying to achieve with a little mini map. Now, whether you draw it as a dungeon master or whether the player characters are asked to draw it, that's really up to you. That's down to dungeon master play style, nothing else. Okay? I know some people think it's an old school concept and you shouldn't do it and it causes problems, but look, it depends on what your players like in the game rather than you should never do it. Okay, area 3, the old entrance. All 3 Sturges can potentially surround a single player character. You can get 9 Sturges surrounding a character very easily, and then the 10th one will be coming from above. Okay, so even though it can be done, it doesn't necessarily mean you want to do it, but you can do it if you want to. It is possible to achieve this. If the Sturges surround one character and get surprise with a high initiative, the character is likely to become unconscious and die before they even get to act in combat, in that combat encounter. Just because if you are surprised, you don't get to act, and if the Sturges get a high initiative, which it could happen as well, then potentially you're looking at an entire character out of the game, even when they're level 4. If you do the maths, it can happen. It doesn't mean it will happen, but it can happen. The Sturges are hungry, but will likely be sleeping to conserve energy. Now, I know I'm kind of going off script with the adventure here, but look, seriously, it's not like Sturges just hang from the ceiling hungry and all they do is just wait for something to come by, which is what the adventure sort of suggests. They would probably be trying to conserve energy if they're very hungry, and instead of flapping around and looking, I mean, if they're moving around the caves and looking for food, that makes sense. But if they're just staying put and they're kind of in the nesting area, they're probably sleeping, just like bats do. They potentially can't hear anything over the noise of the booming waves that are coming from Area 16. This will be a problem right throughout the entire cavern complex, is the noise that is created. So it will hide a lot of the talking the player characters are doing and a lot of the noise they make as well from other creatures in different locations, including the Sturges. Player characters are wanting to sneak past the Sturge nest wouldn't be very difficult to do so. You might not even require a stealth check. It's really up to you as a dungeon master. I think we often get caught up into we must always roll a stealth check. But here's the thing. If you're sleeping, why would you be using passive perception? Right? You don't always have passive perception in play. If you look at how the rules are written, if you are distracted or doing something else, like sleeping would count, you wouldn't use passive perception. I know somebody might say, well, will you add disadvantage to your passive perception? Well, you could, but you just don't involve it. Which means that really all a player character needs to do, or the party needs to do, is say, we are being as quiet and as sneaky as we can as we move through here so we don't disrupt anything, and they don't really need to make a dice roll. Not if those Sturges are sleeping. If you decided they're awake, it would be slightly different because they potentially can see them now. There are rotten wooden shields amongst the orc skeletons that have the symbol of the Urcrypt orc tribe. Now, I'm saying this primarily because we know that that's the tribe that actually attacked Phandalin and the Phandelver Pact. It's canon, it's there. And I'm adding in some rotten shields or wooden shields so that we've got something to distinguish or mark them with. Because usually orcs don't have armor that would last very long. But the wooden shields would have probably rotted, but they wouldn't be completely gone. So I'm adding that in there in terms of all the garbage that you find in this location. There is an online wiki on the Urcrypt orcs. Hopefully I got that pronounced right. I don't know if I got it right, but hopefully I did. The 3 emblems of the major clans or families would probably appear on the wall mural, symbolizing the Phandelver Pact. Now, the adventure talks about the dwarves and the gnome, but it doesn't talk about humans. And so I'm going to add this in for you, okay? So dwarven involvement, it may have been the family of the rock seekers. You may want to include this. The gnomes I don't know enough about, so I can't give you anything for. The humans, there were some human mages, and some of the members of Phandalin who were human were also part of the Phandelver Pact. So as a result of that, it might be that the Tresendar family are actually part of this pact, and their symbol is up there. So I thought I would add that in there for you. These are ideas taken from another creator, and I thought his ideas were quite smart in regards to this location. There is also an online wiki for the Phandelver Pact. If you wanted to know more about it, it'll give you a little bit of information. It won't give you a huge amount of information for those of you who are interested. Area 4 is the old guardroom. There's a lot of skeletons here. I know that usually worries people when you think, okay, lots of skeletons. How are the player characters supposed to deal with that? Well, there's lots of different ways we can deal with that. And what I'm going to suggest to you is that you want to try to... You've got to be kidding me. Okay. Sorry about that. We had the return of YouTube. You've got to do something about these bots. You really do. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I will start again. Area 4, the old guardroom. There are 9 skeletons here, which usually puts people off. They think that that's going to be way too much to deal with. And look, 9 skeletons seems like a lot, but the group will be fine. If they have 4 or 5 characters and they're level 4, they can deal with that many skeletons. In fact, in most cases, the skeletons aren't going to necessarily be a huge problem unless they activate them. They could easily look in the room, realize that there are skeletons or potentially skeletons there, since the corpses or the skeleton parts are all scattered across the floor, but not actually active. They might just close the door and leave. This has happened to me. The best strategy for dealing with the skeletons is bludgeoning weapons. Any kind of bludgeoning weapon attack, because the monster is vulnerable to them. Otherwise, something like turn undead abilities that the paladin or cleric has, or just flee. Often that's the easiest way to deal with them if anybody's having some problems, like just bug out. Consider adding loot to the room or information to find, like say a diary or some adventuring gear. And you can pick whatever you think would be suitable for an old guard room. Like, I think it's page 150 of the player's handbook has a big list of different types of adventuring gear. So select something that you think might be suitable for a guard room. It might be an old pair of playing dice, or it might be some playing cards that have managed to survive time because they were made out of something special, or maybe they're corroded. All sorts of things that potentially could be found here. It's really up to you. I'm also going to suggest adding in a box full of earplugs that were used by the guards to help sleep with all the noise that can be found in the room and the cavern complex. So you could include boxes of earplugs in other locations and not just this location, but I thought this was probably the most sensible place to put them. This is actually not my idea. This is actually taken from another creator, and I thought it was quite clever because I was kind of curious. We often don't really... It's very easy to miss the booming waves box section. Like, there's a little bit that talks about, the booming waves and the effect it has on the cavern. Right, so Area 5. Area 5 is the assayers' office, which is a very odd name. I had to look it up. I didn't really fully understand what an assayer's office is. so I had to do a bit of research. If the player characters can't open that strong box, because the strong box is not going to be that hard to find, it is possible they will struggle to get it open because the DC is high. So consider letting them try something else. And I have a list of different things they could try so that if you come across this, you know how to adjudicate it. Player characters could take the strong box with them, so just walk off with it and deal with opening it up at a later time, or they could use an acid vial on the lock. Like literally just burn the lock out and then pop the box open. That's what an acid vial's there for in the first place, provided the group have that. They may not have it. Breaking the door, breaking the box open with a crowbar might require a strength check. I'm going to suggest a DC 25, which is quite high and difficult, but you are trying to break something open rather than pick the lock in this case. So it should be, and it is a strong box, so it should be hard to get into. 25 is very hard. 20 is hard. So I've listed it quite high, even though they are level 4. You don't change your DCs necessarily just because of their level. You set your DCs based on the concept of how hard you think it should be. That's always been my approach. If you feel that that's wrong, then change it. Bashing weapons could smash the box open with an attack roll. So the AC on the box, if you try to smash it with a weapon, and it needs to be a bashing weapon of some kind rather than just a sword, it's probably not going to work. Otherwise, an axe still probably going to be problematic. You really need something that you can bash the thing open with. The AC of the strong box is probably a 19, and I've taken this from a reference point, which are a reference source, so I will give you that. And the box would probably have 10 hit points. So you wouldn't have to bash it too many times before you could break it open, as long as you can hit it. So the chances are you don't really need to get them to roll attacks unless they are using the wrong weapon. Like, if they're using the right weapon, it's just going to come open. So where am I getting the armor class for this box and the hit points for this box? I'm deriving it from page 246 and 247 of the Dungeon Master Guide for 5e. If you look in those pages, you will find information around that sort of thing, and I have used that as my guide. What's the deal with the dwarven markings? Basically, it's just a few scattered letters on some scrap paper. The adventure does mention scrap paper and dwarven markings. Like, what does it say? It doesn't say anything, because all that survived is a few letters here and there, and the rest of it is disappeared over time, or the paper's rotted away. So you don't have to worry about creating anything around this, unless of course you want to. But I would suggest you don't have to concern yourself. There's nothing of significance here. Just give me a second. I need to make another drink. Okay, Area 6, the South Barracks. What are we going to do with the ghouls? The ghoul's best ability is the claw attack. That can paralyze its victim, so lead with that ability and keep using it, because that is what makes a ghoul nasty. Like, using anything else is kind of a waste of your time. Now, the best strategy for dealing with a ghoul that the player characters would have is using ranged attacks, the turn undead abilities that the paladin and cleric have, or simply just fleeing, just run away. You can ignore the DC 10 wisdom perception check, in my opinion, to listen at the door for feeding ghouls, as it's a very easy check. The characters just need to listen at the door. Now, why am I saying this? I want you to consider, since the door is slightly ajar, and since those creatures are probably making enough noise, why would you have to make a dice roll, which is considered easy, to do this? It's ridiculous. All you need to do is have your players state that they listen at the door before they open it and walk in, or before they even open it, so that they know what they're walking into. Dice rolling is not necessary here. None of the armor worn by the dwarven or orc corpses can be used. It's all rotten and rusted away. So if you're wondering how to adjudicate that, if the player characters say, can we take the armor off the dwarves and the orc bodies or skeletons or corpses, you say there's nothing that you can actually use. It's all corroded in some way. They'll find other stuff in other places later on. Area 7 is the ruined storeroom. An unusual place. You used to see this sort of thing in older dungeons, and they have included one here. This room is intended and designed to be used as a resting place for the player characters by blocking or barring the door from the inside. This is to ensure, now this is probably the only place they could use. There is no other location that I can think of that would be suitable for doing so, but this one is definitely intended by the designers to be a place that you can rest. The old beer kegs and barrels can be stacked in front of the door to block it off, so you consider that as a way of barring the door. There's also possibly a door bar that can be that has been installed by the dwarves and gnomes when they were still alive, who built the mine as a way of securing this location for retreat when there was a threat to the mine. So I'm going to say that there probably is a door bar built in that was used in the past, because if you wanted to hold up somewhere and you were a dwarf or a gnome, you would want to hold up where all the alcohol is. Okay, I'm playing with you now. Pitons and iron spikes can be wedged or hammered into the door to hold it closed as well. There are a couple of different ways of dealing with this, and pitons and iron spikes are very, very common strategy. Certainly in older versions of the game, you can carry this on into your modern game as well. Area 8 is the fungi cavern. The fungi cavern presents essentially a trap. Although the map doesn't indicate that the fungus or fungi is covering the majority of the floor, assume that it does from the text, even though the map doesn't indicate this. The text sort of suggests this, the map does not. A nature or survival check could be made by the player characters to determine that the fungus might be dangerous or poisonous. I'm going to suggest a DC 15, which is considered a medium check. I think that's reasonable. I don't think we need to be making it a DC 10. As I said, I don't believe in wasting your time with a DC 10. A DC 15 is worth rolling. This room is a slow-acting environmental trap that the players are meant to avoid. They're not supposed to go through here, really. And the intention is that they take a different path when they discover that this is actually a trap location and it would be dangerous to go through here. Consider giving the player characters advantage or even automatic success on their Constitution saving throw if they cover their mouth and nose, or they hold their breath. I think either one would be suitable. They can cover their mouth and nose with their hand or a piece of cloth, or they just hold their breath and walk on through or run on through. Something like the Lesser Restoration spell that you can find on page 255 of the player's handbook, or the Paladin's Lay on Hands power that you can find on page 84 of the player's handbook, can remove the poison condition. Being poisoned in Dungeons & Dragons 5e is a big deal. You do not want to have it if you can get rid of it, and considering they've got quite a lot to deal with, they probably want to get rid of it as soon as they possibly can. And so those are probably the best ways of doing it. Otherwise, you're dealing with time, and sometimes you just don't have enough time with a location like this. Okay, Area 9, which is the Great Cavern. These lurking ghouls have a chance to ambush the party of characters. So you're going to roll a 20-sided dice and add their stealth modifier, which you're probably wondering what the heck is that? Well, it's actually the dexterity modifier, which is a +2. So you're going to add that to your D20 roll when you're making your stealth check, because the ghouls would be trying to hide from anybody coming in. Compare the ghoul's stealth check with the player character's passive perception if you're using that, or an active perception check if you think that's appropriate. You determine it. It's a Dungeon Master tool. If it seems appropriate to use passive perception or an active perception check, fine. If it seems better to use something like both of them, then use both of them. And this helps you determine surprise. If the player characters fail to notice the ghouls, then they get surprised when a fight breaks out, and a fight will break out. You're not going to be talking to ghouls. 7 ghouls can be a deadly fight because of their paralyzing claw attacks, and also because there's so many of them. So allow the player characters to flee if they need to, because they might well need to do so, even if they are level 4. There is a lot that a Dungeon Master could add to this cavern if they wanted to. I'm not going to suggest anything to you. I'm going to suggest to you that this was probably the main feasting area in the cavern location. It kind of looks like it was part eating hall because of the tables. And so that means that opens up this location for finding all sorts of things. The section in the adventure doesn't really go into a lot of detail on that, so you're going to have to do most of the work, unfortunately. Unless, of course, somebody says, Fred, we need you to do all the work. And then I'll have to do all the work. Anyway, Area 10. This is the dark pool. It's not necessary for the player characters to make a perception check. All they need to do is state that they search or investigate the pool to find the treasure on the skeleton. So getting into the pool and looking around, that should be enough. Sticking their head in there and having a look around should be enough. If they have a good, decent light source, they might be able to see through the pool. You might decide that the pool, the water in the pool is really murky and you can't see through it very easily from the outside unless you sort of stick your head in there. That's really up to you. I wouldn't make it a huge hassle for the player characters. A perception check really isn't necessary for this location. Okay, that means I've covered half of Wave Echo Cave. So that means we're going to return for part 2 of Wave Echo Cave, which is lesson 7, which will be taking place in about a week's time for those of you who are interested. I'm hoping this was useful to you and you will find it helpful in your preparation as a dungeon master. I would very much like to know what your comments and questions are. So if you have any questions about what I've talked about today, anything that you would like to add as feedback because you have been considering other options or you've already run the adventure and you have some advice for other people, put that in the comments section. I would be very interested to hear. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Right, okay. Just give me a second. I just need some water because I've been talking for a little while. I'm going to definitely designate at least 15 minutes for Q&A before I do any kind of demonstration, okay, for today. I'm just going to get rid of that. That probably won't help me. I'll dump that down there. And yeah, so please feel free to start asking questions or giving feedback. I am not going to read out every single comment. My intention ultimately with this adventure is to ensure that you get the information you need, and rather than read out all the different comments. So if you see that all I do is say hi, it's not because I'm ignoring you, it's just that I wanted to stay on track, which then the track is to give you what you need. So questions, here we go. It's probably a good idea to type in #question. Oh, I got gas, I apologize. I should mention right now that those of you who want the notes for the entire Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master tutorial, not just today's one, but everything that is going to all go up onto Patreon. Those of you who can't wait for the last of the Dungeon Master handouts to go up onto Patreon and just want the information right now, you'll find the edited, the original tutorial that I ran on Lighthall. The edited video is available on Patreon. It's not available on YouTube, but it is available on Patreon, and you can just go and watch those. They're unlisted, so that's why you can't find them without the link for anybody who wants that. But as I said, the best way to support and make sure and ensure that this class continues is to use Patreon. Otherwise, a super chat or super sticker is very much appreciated because there's a lot of time and effort that goes into creating these. And this is a weekly class, so that means we were supposed to come back every week. I'm going on holiday very shortly. So I think what is probably very important for people to indicate in the chat is, even though I'm going on holiday, thank you, Vincent B. You like my guides? Good job. Thank you for the $2 Canadian. I think that's Canadian, isn't it? I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. I wish you had typed in a question as well. But anyway, so here's the thing I need you to tell me now, those of you who are here. I am going on holiday for 2 weeks as of a week from now. which I am very tempted to just put this class on hold so I can just finish everything. Because the Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master tutorials are not the only thing I'm preparing. I've got the DM preparation classes to finish off that I will run live as well every week at some point, hopefully. And I've got the monster combat tactics tutorials to run as well, which would be every week as well. And then there's also the how to beginners character creation, and then there's the basic core rules, how they work in demonstration. Like, all of that is coming in the future, and that's what my holiday was supposed to be about. Me not having to work 12 hours a day and also finish all of that stuff so it's ready for you. But if you don't want to wait for part 2 Wave Echo Cave, you need to tell me, no Fred, we want Wave Echo Cave like next week, and I'll do it. Okay? If people aren't too worried about it and I hear nothing in the live chat, then I know I can get away with it and I can just do my own thing, which is fine. That's great. I'm happy. That does mean that in 2 weeks, even if I stop for 2 weeks, this will return and continue on for like 4 months probably, and we'll have at least 2 cycles of the class, depending on the need and how popular it becomes. Okay? All right, so you guys need to let me know. Core Blimey, I just got a huge super chat. Who is that? Country245. I should have guessed. So Country245, as I have said, is a patron, and he already supports me on Patreon, and he's just given me $20 super chat. I really do appreciate it. It is long, great content. Look, I do know that what I'm doing here is long form content. I'm enjoying the DM roundtable as well. I'm glad you are enjoying the DM roundtable. Okay, let's go through because I've spent a lot of time talking about all that sort of stuff. Let's deal with saying hi to people and answering questions. Hashtag question would be really good. And Country, I hope that you have a question for me, considering you've just dropped a whole bunch of money in my hands, which I do appreciate, as always. So I said hi to Cowboy Bigfoot and MIRP. What else? West T. Looks ready to go. Now, the map you're looking at is not full scale, okay? I want to make it clear, don't try to print it full scale, okay? You've got to understand that you're looking at a map that is about 8 foot long by 6 feet wide. I think that's roughly what we're talking about. Now, I don't use Imperial, but I know that's big. When I looked at it, I would have to cut this map up into 6 pieces, and each one of those maps would be an A1 sized page, which is huge, which is slightly smaller than this. It's about the size of my desk, okay? That in itself, it makes it utterly ridiculous. What you want to do is just stick to drawing it out or using theatre of the mind when you can get away with it, rather than trying to print the whole thing. This is just to give you an idea of placement, okay? It also means it makes it easier when I have to run a playthrough of this with you in the future. Then I can do that because it gives you an idea of position. Okay, so that's West T. Mike G is here. I have run 4 games. And when I get home from work in 2 months, I want to run this. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad this was great timing for you. And I think you will find, Mike, that I'll be doing this, and you'll be able to come back and ask questions and get a bit more feedback. Look, your questions determine what happens with this class. Every time somebody asks a really good question in the live feed, I transfer those good questions and the answers that I have to create or figure out over to the notes, which means that the notes you get on Patreon do not stay the same. They will change over time. They have already changed over time. Okay? Now, Dataman, is it Dataman365 Gaming? Dataman. Dataman? I think it's Dataman. You have a cardboard one that fits onto your dining room table. Your dining room table must be pretty big, because if it's to scale, that is. Yes, that's true. Yes, the bugbear in Cragmore hideout would know the location of Wave Echo Cave. The bugbear you're talking about is King Groll, and I did actually mention King Groll. So yeah. Well, you're from Western Canada. Interesting, Mike. I didn't know that. I'm meeting more and more people from Canada, and I'm enjoying my interactions with them. It's been good. Overboard. Hello, Joe. How's it going? Overboard has a YouTube channel as well, and it covers all sorts of different things. So by all means, you should go and check him out. Okay. The GM Redditor. So you are so happy that you're here. I'm glad that you're happy. Morena, hello, you're back again. Good time zone. It's a good time zone if you're in North America. Probably not so great if you're in other parts of the world. I imagine if you're in Europe, it will be painful. If you're in New Zealand or Australia, not so bad. Jasper, you're so tired. Oh no. You're up early, I'm assuming. It must be late where you are. Is it Andrea? Hello. Well, I'm glad you were able to make it. You're in Germany time zone. Oh my gosh, that ain't going to be good. Welcome, Andrea. Hello, Ryan. How's it going? I almost pulled a TPK with the Sturges and the haunted house running Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Sturges can be dangerous, but they look. What I have generally found when it comes to a large number of Sturges is that somebody who has something like burning hands will just ask everybody in the party if they mind if I burn them all off. And somebody just takes the fire damage because Sturges have so few hit points. Like they don't have enough to really worry about, but they can do a lot of damage. And because they only have 2 hit points, the chances are Burning Hands is going to take out all of them, and then whoever gets hit by it, or because there is a saving throw, right? So that means your player characters have got a fairly good chance of making it, and the Sturges are probably going to die, even if they succeed on a saving throw against Burning Hands. They'll be dead as a doorknob. This is what I have often found, is that Burning Hands solves that problem, if they, of course, you have somebody with that spell. Okay. Right. Okay, so we've got that there. Sturges. It's okay. No problem. Makes sense. I'm glad things are making sense for you. Well, insight is one thing, but I can assure you a lot of research and racking my brain. And I had a lot of help from my patrons. I had a lot of help on Discord. I've had discussions with Matthew Perkins about this adventure, so I've got a lot of help from different locations, although I have to say Matthew Perkins and myself probably do things very differently. No, not completely. We agree with a lot of things, but we have probably a different approach to how we do stuff. Right, what have we got here? You're running Wave Echo Cave soon. The GM Radar data. Okay, well, so this was a good time to make sure I did it. So I guess this is why I say if you want me to run Wave Echo Cave next week and do part 2, you need to say. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it for 2 weeks, which really kind of equates to 3 weeks because of the timing. All right, what do you got here? You said the bugbears in the know the location of Wave Echo Cave. Would that include the one in Cragmore Hideout? You're talking about Clark. Possibly. I don't know that it's guaranteed. The only reason I'm saying that the bugbear and Cragmore Castle wouldn't know the location of the Wave Echo Cave is because that's King Groll, and he has the map. He's trying to trade it and sell it to the doppelganger. So he will have looked at the map. So he probably knows where to go to find this mine. That's why I've said that bugbear in particular would know the location. As for Clark may have seen the map, and I guess your rationale actually makes a lot of sense, which means now I've got to update my notes, don't I? Because Clark and his goblins are the first ones who had interactions with Sildar Hallwinter and Gundren, and then sent Gundren on, so he probably did check out Gundren's map, since the map is on Gundren, right? So that actually makes a lot of sense. I wish I had come to that conclusion. It required your assistance to move me forward in that. I will have to update my notes for the future to include that. I am always surprised at how much more you can learn by talking to people about a topic over and over again. You learn a little bit more. There's no way I can actually put a note in on this and make sure I remember it for the future, so I won't try to do so. Otherwise I'm going to mess things up. Okay, but thank you for that. So you do not need to be sorry, Data Main. You do not need to be sorry at all, because actually your logic makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Rest, you earned it. Are there... and there are a lot of other tutorials on the yeah, there is a lot of tutorials on this channel. Like, there's a lot of stuff. I cover so much stuff, it's not funny. Take a much needed rest. Good, I appreciate it. Dude, please take your time off and enjoy your vacation. Andrea, thank you very much. I will return. It is, even if I stop for my break, I will return, and you should wind up with a class that happens every week, so you can get what you need. I want new dungeon masters and those people running this adventure to be able to get the best experience they can. And the reason I talk about this adventure is this is usually everybody's first point of call for 5e, and so I want to encourage that. You're going to be patient. Good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. Country245, he has a question. Thank God for that. I was hoping he would have one. How long would this dungeon, Wave Echo Cave, last approximately? Okay, so it depends on the dungeon master and what the player characters do. If they do absolutely everything, it could be potentially 3 or 4 sessions. Just because there's so much to fight. A lot of it you can just talk your way through, which I will, and you'll find that out when we deal with part 2 of Wave Echo Cave. There are a lot of areas where you can sneak past stuff and avoid it. So the ochre jelly might never come into play. You may never have to deal with the sturges or even the skeletons. All right, you open the door, you activate them, you close the door. They might open the door and follow you, but they might not. And the sturges, you could wind up sneaking past and not having to deal with them. The ghouls, they'll probably try to fight you, and they will probably try to open the door and come after you, and they've got 2 different points they can come through. So you're probably not going to avoid them. And then these ghouls here in the central area, you're not avoiding them, because they there's so many access points into them, the chances are that you players are going to stumble into that. There is a way to avoid them completely, going around the outside of the map, either left or right, and you can avoid that whole location, but it's kind of unlikely that it's going to work out that way. Okay, so that's your question. I think I've answered that. Yeah, so this cost me quite a lot. It cost me almost $20 New Zealand to print it, and it cost me almost, was it $20? It may have even been more than that. It might have been 25 actually. And it cost me almost as much to get it laminated. This has got a matte finished laminate, and that will cost me like $35 in New Zealand money. I don't know what it's going to cost. This is an A0 size map, and that's not even full scale, to give you an idea. So, I mean, the only reason to do it is if you're going to reuse it over and over again, and I'll be reusing it. It makes sense for me. It doesn't make sense for anybody else, frankly. What else? They learned that Wyvern Tor Caves. Oh, God. Really? Oh yeah, you're bringing in a glass staff in an interesting way. Okay, so I know you've got. Oh, what have you got here? Fred is the. Well, thank you for saying I'm the best. I don't know if I'm the best, but I'm trying as hard as I can. Um, well, the party should be angry at glass staff. That's the whole point. No matter what the agreement was, you want them to be angry at glass staff. What are you painting overboard? Andrea, um, I as a teacher gonna offer to a small group of students to play this very game. Okay, good. This comes up quite a bit. I'm glad to hear this. I am thinking one of them want to be the DM. Look, point them in the right direction. I will look after them as best I can. He's very anxious because he wants to do a good job involving the doppelgangers. Any idea how he can implement them in the game as part of the plot? So first off, I did a video on how to use the doppelgangers. Okay, so my suggestion to you is, like, seriously, just direct them in that video. If you type in Lost Mine of Phandelver doppelgangers, you'll find it. Okay, that's all you need. Okay, what do we got? Hello, Jim. How's it going? You're welcome. I'm glad I was able to do this. Interesting. So you're rerunning this, and yet you come to these tutorials to see what I have to say. And yes, I will stay safe and take care. Absolutely. See, that's quite interesting. That's why I do ask that question. I'm always surprised to find that that people aren't first-time dungeon masters running this adventure. That 46% they say no, or 15% say coming back into DMing. So they've been DMs before. So I'm always kind of surprised by that. Interesting. A Marquez. No, I think I got your balls to your name up again. I believe, aren't you a patron? If I remember right, there have been so many people who've been joining Patreon, I'm thinking, why did I not do this sooner? I know why I didn't, because it was insane. I'm still insane. I don't know. I mean, seriously, I got to be insane for doing this. Question. Okay, what is your question here? Overall, do you think Wave Echo Cave is well designed as written? Look, you know I'm usually quite hard on Wizards of the Coast, and I know a lot of people have commented on this location as being poorly designed, but I kind of don't agree. I actually think it's quite clever, because if you look at it, there are potentially 3 different ways to get through this thing. With a totally different experience. Or if they decide to clean out the whole thing, which is potentially what is going to ultimately happen, there's a lot going on. So I don't know that comes into play. This is not like the old-fashioned maps where every room was a square or a rectangle, or every passageway was just a straight line. Not to say that the older ones didn't have, some sort of logic to them, but I feel like it is that kind of reasonable to have it laid out the way it is. So, if that makes sense, I mean, I don't know if that actually answers your question, but I did the best I could. And Andrea, you are welcome. You want to run the ultimate Lost Mine of Phandelver adventure? Well, yep. So, my intention is, I know a lot of people rerun this. Like, this is quite a common adventure to run. So my intention has always kind of been to try to give you as much as I can. Okay, Right, so I've been chatting a lot and answering questions. That does not mean you stop asking questions, but I'm going to do some demonstration because there are some people here who are very new and probably need some help. I need to make sure I put my little drawy mappy thingy in the right place so you can see it. I will shift a few things round so that you can actually see what's going on. I will grab this and I think what we will do is, rather than dealing with stealth checks, like, I will just go through initiative and line that up because, you know, at some point you're probably going to wind up with some sort of a combat encounter. Like, it's going to happen eventually. I mean, even if you try to avoid it as much as you can, there will be a point where it does come up. And so let's look at what that kind of looks like in your game as you're exploring. Okay. All right, I'll put you guys over there. There's your party. I'm just going to select 4. Okay. And yes, I am a devotee. You are very much a devotee. I knew I was right. I'm getting better. I do struggle sometimes to remember who is a patron and who is not. Yeah. What do you got here? I ran this in 2016, but I'm still learning a lot from these videos. Okay, good. Seeing more clearly where I made mistakes. One of the things I want you to consider everything that you did a mistake is bullshit. It's not a mistake. It's just how it went that way at that time. Like, I get this discussion come up more than a few times, and people say, like, you know, what's the advice to be a really good dungeon master? The only advice you need to have to be a good dungeon master is to have made the decision to do it. Everything else comes with time. Okay? I'm sure there'll be somebody out there who says there were some dungeon masters never get that good at all. But if you are willing to do this, since it's such a lot of work, look at what we're talking about here. If you're willing to do that, as far as I'm concerned, you get an A+. Okay? And then everything else is gravy. It's as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I understand. Never stop learning, never trying to improve. I do get it. Okay, so let's talk about initiative. Let's do some initiative rolls. And I guess you're going to have to select an encounter for me to run. I'll run I won't do anything else than just show you kind of how the monster works, for those of you who need that. So is it going to be the ghouls here? Is it going to be the ghouls there? Is it going to be the skeletons over there? Is it going to be the sturges? Is it going to be the oak jelly? I mean, you decide. That's up to you. Initiative. And we will start rolling some initiatives. In a second, I need to drink some water, though. If you can't see clearly what I'm doing, you need to let me know, and I will move things. Maybe if I move that more over there, so you can see that board a bit more clearly, and you should be able to see what I'm doing here with this. Okay, I need some dice. And obviously, when you're rolling, getting people to roll initiative, as the dungeon master, you're not rolling all the initiatives. You only have to roll your monsters in initiative. That's it. So I'm going to roll all the player characters initiative, okay, while you guys decide which monsters or which set of monsters I'm going to use today, okay? So pick one. Like, you got to write something down. Okay, so let's start off with the rogue. They get a 3 to their roll. So I rolled a 20-sided dice. I rolled a 7. Can you see this? I don't know that you can. See there. There we go. That's probably better. Because I got a shoulder in the way, don't I? So that's 10. So that's the rogue. Gets a 10. Let's put that up over there. Okay, next one. Let's do the fighter. Fighter has got a very low initiative. Let's go with, this is a -1 for the fighter. So whatever we roll on this thing. You guys haven't selected a monster yet. I haven't seen anybody write down what a monster. I'm not putting a poll up. It's just too hard. You have to write down what monster. Is it ghouls, skeletons, sturges, oak jelly? All right. So roll pretty well for the fighter though. So -1 and 18. That comes to 17. So the fighter is a 17, even with that really bad modifier. We did all right. The cleric has a really bad modifier. I'm using the pre-made characters in this case. So there are pre-made characters that come with this adventure. I'm using their stats, if you're wondering what's going on. So we'll just roll that. And there we go. There's a 5. Didn't do very well, so that -1 is going to be 4 for the cleric. 4. And the last one, I believe, is the wizard. The wizard has got a 2, so we'll get rid of this. 2. Jelly, sturges, come on, jelly. Oh, another jelly. some people want the jelly to get stuck in. It's going to be interesting. So this is, wizard. There's a lot of jellies. We're jellying it today. I get the feeling that you guys want to see what the jelly does. I suspect you know how that jelly works, and that's why you want me to talk about and show you what's going to go on with this thing, which is fine. I get it. I totally get it. Let's grab this. So it looks like we're rolling for the initiative on a oak jelly. Okay. The initiative modifier is the dexterity modifier, and you'll notice the dexterity modifier for this little creature is a -2. That means that chances are it will not get to act. It also means ultimately it's not a very good stealth creature. It's not really good at hiding. So this is why you're probably not going to get surprised by this thing. Okay, so we'll roll this. 13, and that comes to 11, so -2. We've got 11 for the DM. All right, so once we've got all our initiatives rolled, what we're going to do is we're going to put everything into order, starting with the highest and going to the lowest. So our fighter got the highest number, surprisingly. Didn't expect that. We'll move that around. So fighter at the top, followed by the next number is actually the DM in this case. Not really expecting that, but that's fine. And then after that we get the rogue, and then we get the wizard, and the cleric is last at 4. So this is our initiative, and this is our line. So we start highest and go down to our lowest, and now we need to start rolling some actions and how this would work. Now my problem is I need to place this in such a way so that you can see what's going on. I will stick that over there for my numbers, since the oak jelly is probably going to be having a battle over here somewhere. Remember, the passageways are much larger than what you see here. We're dealing with something that is ultimately 10 foot square. It's a 10 foot wide passageway. It's not as narrow as this, okay, for those of you who are wondering what's going on here. So let's take this group. There's probably not going to be surprise on the group, because like I said, jelly's stealth ability is pretty shite, even if it tries, even in darkness or even in dim light. So we'll put our heroes over here like this. I might have to turn the oak jelly a little bit so we can actually get everybody in. We get 2 in, and we'll have a wizard over there. So like there's our battle. Is that gonna work? Kind of like that. That'll do. Okay. Doesn't quite work, but you get the idea. It's as easy as I can lay it out. So our first character to act during this is going to be the fighter. Now the fighter has an axe. Like, it gets to make an axe attack. So fighter, and you are level 4, which means that a lot of your modifiers have changed. You'll notice on the back of the fighter character sheet, if I can just grab this and move this over here, you'll notice with the fighter character sheet, particularly for the great axe, which if I can find, yes, there we are. It's going to be so much easier when I get somebody else like you guys to do this. So the great axe is a +5 to hit, but when you get to level 4, some things change. Okay, like your strength modifier, okay, gets bigger, It was 3 and now it's going to go up, which means that ultimately your attack is going to be higher than it was before. So instead of it being a 5, it means the great axe and the javelin attack are going to be increased by 1. So it's not 5, it's going to be 6. 6 plus whatever we roll. It also means that our damage output changes. Okay, our damage for that axe is supposed to be a 12-sided dice, which is, where is the 12-sided dice? This one here. Okay, the big damage dice, and you're going to add 3. But because your strength is 4 now, or modifier is 4, you'll be adding a 4. So we'll add 4 to whatever we roll on the 12-sided dice. So first do our attack roll to hit an oak jelly, which is pretty easy to hit. So I got a 15. You let me know if you can't see what's going on here, please. 15 plus 6, 21. 21 is greater than and equal to the armor class of the oak jelly, which only has an 8. Very easy to strike. So you've hit the target. Now we roll for damage. Get rid of this dice. And we roll our 12-sided dice. I rolled a 7 plus 4. Okay, and our fighter will have done 11 points of damage. Okay, so the oak jelly has just lost 11 hit points, which is quite a few. It's not a small amount. So we'll go, how can we designate this? We'll go with a 6 and another 6. Actually, I might use those 8-sided dice over here. That's going to be easier for me. So we can go 8 and a 3. That gives us 11. There we go. So 11 points. That's just for the fighter. Now it's the DM's turn. The monster gets to do something. Its ability is very, very basic. The only problem is an oak jelly has the split effect, right? And we just used a slashing weapon. We just used a great axe. And it splits. So if the creature is medium size or large, and it is currently, and it is hit by lightning or slashing damage, it splits into 2 jellies. So you now have 2 jellies to deal with that are fighting. And they need to have at least 10 hit points, okay, the new jellies. So whatever you had before in terms of hit points, it has a total of 45. So I'll write 45 here. And we minus 11. Minus 11. Okay, that gives us 34. So each jelly is going to have 17 hit points, which means now it can make 2 attacks. That's not a good thing, right? If you probably already figured out this sounds really bad, Fred. So we'll do this so you can see what the likely effect is. And I'll move that out of the way. We've got 2 oak jellies to contend with, so oak jelly. I almost forgot the splitting effect, by the way. I was sitting here and I was like, oh, hang on. Splitting effect. That's the main reason we do this. Now, I don't normally roll for monsters. I usually use flat maths and just use the average damage. But I will roll the damage for this, and it's actually 2 6-sided dice damage for these little suckers. So we'll move that out of the way and get that dice over there. Okay, for our hit. And we're dealing with two strikes, and it's a +2 for the damage. Right, so put that back up to there so you can see. Makes it a little bit easier for me. And now, rolling the damage, rolling the attacks, two attacks with a +4. So I got a 6. That's 6 equals 10. 10 is not going to equal to or be, it's not equal to or greater than the armor class of the fighter. The fighter has an armor class, I believe, of 17, and that shouldn't have changed as far as I know, given that particular character. Okay, you're rooting for the jelly. Well, Helga, all for it. Hello, Chris. How's it going? And is it Evos? Oh, I'm so sorry. I've ballsed your name up so much. I'm struggling. Evos D's, I think it is. Right. So that's the first one. Doesn't hit. So we'll roll for the second oak jelly, since there are now 2 oak jellies. I got a 6 again, so it'll be the same maths. Okay, so we don't need to worry about doing any damage. One of the things you'll find that if you have a +4 to your attack with a monster and you're dealing with level 4 characters, even if they do strike, they just don't do enough damage. It just seems to be one of those things. So the Ochre Jelly has done nothing, even though it's split, even though there's 2 attacks taking place. And then we go to the Rogue. I'm not sure I really want to do the Rogue, but if you give me a drink, I might change my mind. Just give me a second. Good try. You're being nice. You know I ballsed it up like you wouldn't believe. I ballsed up that name so badly. You're just being very, very nice about it. I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll roll for the Rogue. We're probably not going to get past round 1. For those of you who are wondering how many rounds is Fred going to play through and try to do all by his lonesome with all these character sheets taking place. Did he plan it out? And I can trust me now. I did not plan out this aspect of it at all. So the Rogue has a short sword and a short bow. So unfortunately, we're using a short sword. It does piercing damage. Thank God for that. Like, the modifier for this is going to probably be slightly higher. It's normally a +5. But if you look at it, it's a level 4 character now. And the short bow and the short sword attack increases by 1. It also means that because it's a finesse weapon, your damage is going to increase. So instead of a 5, we get a 6 for this, for hitting. And our damage should be, instead of it being dex, dex. I think dex only increased by 1. Saving throws, base skills, slight armor. So damage, attack bonus, and damage to attacks such as sort increases by 1. Yes, I think that's what's going on here. Dex modifier, yes, so that's right, it's a 4. Alright, so this is how prepared I am when I'm dealing with this sort of thing. Okay, how's it going, Pale Rider? Just passing through, fair enough, I totally understand. Okay, let's roll for an attack with the Rogue. Only gets 1 attack, but potentially can get sneak attack. Like, that would be fun. Wouldn't that be fun? I know it would be fun for me. I rolled a 13. 13 and 6 is 19. 19 is greater than or equal to the armor class of the at least one of the ochre jellies that are still with us. It's not gone yet. And then how much damage does it do to one of those? Well, you got sneak attack. And sneak attack works pretty simply. You need to have somebody within 5 feet or have advantage. Don't have disadvantage. We can use sneak attack. And that is going to be a 6-sided dice for our damage. That's our base one. And then you also get to use your sneak attack damage, which is an extra 6-sided dice. Okay? So we take another 6-sided dice to add to that. And I don't believe that anything else changes in terms of sneak attack at that point. If I am right, sneak attack 2. No, you do get another one as well. So you should have 2 for sneak attack and 1 for the standard short sword. So we'll roll all this. Remember, one dice is for the standard attack and the other 2 are your sneak attack damage. Okay. Oh, here we go. Let's add up some dice here. Let's move that over there. So we've got 6 for the modifier. We've got 1 on one of the dice. We've got a 6 on another dice, and we've got a 5 on the other dice. So we get a grand total of 16 damage. 16 damage is enough to almost kill one of the ochre jellies. So one ochre jelly is on 17 hit points. So I'll put this over here. And one is on 1 hit point. 17 and 1. And there's still 2 ochre jellies to deal with. Cool blimey. Hello, Robert Moore. How's it going? Welcome back. And thank you for saying thumbs up. And yes, by all means, make comments. I'm happy to answer questions. Right, so we've done the rogue. We can do the wizard next. This is more interesting, frankly, for me, because I can get away with a lot with the wizard at this point. So wizard. We're not going to use a weapon. That would be just silly, right? We're going to use some magic. And It's a jelly, so it's not really that hard to hit. So when you select a spell to use, it's kind of fine to just use a cantrip with your wizard. Because even if you're using a cantrip, chances are it's going to hit. Chances are it will do enough damage to finish off the last one that's been split. And even if it doesn't, well, it doesn't honestly matter too much. We've got Ray of Frost. Ray of Frost is a spell attack. Spell attack is usually 5. I believe that should be going up by 1, if I remember right. Spell attack increases by 1. Yes, that's correct. DC, yep. If you're a level 4, yes, it'll be 1. So it'll be a 6 to hit. Should be a 6 to hit. And then the damage output of Ray of Frost. Hello, thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate great work as always. Frankly, I feel like I'm entering into no man's land when I start talking about trying to run all the characters and the monsters at the same time. This is the sort of lunacy that I do on my channel, frankly. It's I need to stop doing it, but I have been doing it a lot recently. Ray of Frost. I'm not even going to worry about the damage because I'm going to have the wizard target the most injured of the the little jellies. We want to get rid of that thing. So we'll roll our attack. And I got a 7. Well, 6 and 7 comes to 13. Again, thank you, Amy Menza, for the $5 super chat. Okay, so 13 is greater than or equal to the armor class of the jelly, which is only an 8. So we hit, and we will do some damage. And I'm not even going to bother rolling the damage because it's only got 1 hit point left. Okay, and it's cold damage, so it's not going to split. It's just going to die. So we've only got 1 jelly with 17 hit points, provided nobody does anything stupid like splits it again. That's if that's possible. Hello, Jason. How's it going? Question. Gundren stats. Okay, you want to know what Gundren stats are. So first off, Gundren doesn't have stats in the book. In your adventure, you won't find his stats. And the reason there are no stats for him is he was never intended to be a combatant. Okay? So if you wind up in a situation where Gundren is involved, you're really talking about Cragmore Castle rather than this location. But if you decide to take Gundren with you, and you are playing through the adventure, which I know somebody recently has started suggesting was a possibility, what you want to do is you want to look up the section on Cragmore Castle, and you'll find a section in there on Cragmore Castle where he is he's been captured, and ultimately you're going to look at that Cragmore Castle section, and you'll find that there is a comment about what sort of stat block to use for him, and that's when you're dealing with King Groll. Now I'm having to shuffle through a different section now. Okay, I would mark down Gundren as a commoner because he doesn't have a listed stat block. So it's really up to you. If you don't want him to be a commoner and you want him to be a combatant, then use the sidekick rules. Like there are some sidekick rules if you want to include him in the battle. Okay. All right, so we've done the wizard. The wizard has iced one of the oak jellies, and we now have the cleric. This will be the last one that I demonstrate, frankly, for this. Otherwise, it's going to get complicated for me. But you can also see that an oak jelly on its own against the entire party, 4 members, is probably going to die in the first round. We haven't even got through the first round. Like that's the reality, even with the thing splitting. Cleric. Okay. Pardon me as I find my cleric stats, which again we have to make adjustments because it's a level 4 character rather than a level 1 character. There it is. What would you use as a cleric? Well, we're going to just use the bludgeoning warhammer. I think that seems perfectly fine. I wouldn't go for the hand axe myself, so we'll use the warhammer. The warhammer is a bludgeoning weaponing, so it's not going to split. It's currently the attack bonus is a +4, which is very low ultimately for a character when you're level 4, but because we are level 4, there are a few things that change, okay? And that is that we should be getting a bonus to one of our stats. That's wisdom, won't help us, but I believe there's supposed to be the proficiency bonus at level 5, I think it is. My brain is moving slowly. Yeah, proficiency bonus level 5. So we're dealing with a +4. It's not very good, but we are dealing with an ochre jelly. An ochre jelly is not that tough of a creature. And we're dealing with a 2 for our damage. And we're rolling a 8-sided dice for the warhammer. So 8-sided dice. We'll roll our attack. I'll move this over here so you can see what's going on. Will the cleric take it out? Probably not, but I don't think it's going to make any difference. Okay, so rolling the attack for the cleric with the warhammer. I got a 12. So 4 and 12 is 16. 16 is equal to or greater than the armor class of that ochre jelly, so he's hit or she's hit. Roll your 8-sided dice. I got a 2. 2 and 2 comes to 4, and so the ochre jelly loses, doesn't split, and it loses 4 hit points. So instead of being 17 hit points, it's now got 13 hit points. And that's the end of round 1. Then we go to round 2, and the DM has not even taken their turn yet, and as you can see, it's going to be the fighter's turn. I'll tell you what, I will play out. Do I have time? Yeah, I got time. For those of you who still need this, I will play out one more round with the fighter, and then after that, I frankly think I've had enough before I lose my voice. The fighter. Okay, we've already demonstrated the fighter. Now remember, the fighter made it split. But here's the problem. It doesn't work so well if you split it and it's only got 13 hit points. That's really the only reason I'm doing it, is to demonstrate that, if anything else. Okay. Fighter with the where is it? Fighter with the axe. There it is. We need a 12-sided dice. We need a 20-sided dice, and we need to make some adjustments, which is a 6 and a 4. So 6 to hit because we're level 4. And a 4 on our damage, and it's slashing. Move this up. Last attack, probably going to hit, or I could miss. 17 and 6, 23. 23 is going to hit the ochre jelly, which has got only an 8 armor class. You've got to equal to or greater than. We strike it. We then do some damage. The big dice here. And I rolled, it's a 6. 6, so that's 10. It doesn't kill it. Now, one of the things you've got to remember, we've only got 13 hit points left on the ochre jelly, right? And that splitting ability, which is a reaction, works a particular way. And that is if it splits into 2 new jellies, if it has at least 10 hit points. It did have at least 10 hit points. Each new jelly has hit points equal to half the original jelly rounded down. So that means we've got to round down our 13. So we did have a total of 10. So we take our 13 and we're going to deduct 10 because it's a slashing weapon, right? Did I get that off? Come on, clean that away. There we go. So 13 minus the damage of 10. Okay, that's only 3. Okay, so that means that it isn't going to split. It isn't going to split. There's just going to be one ochre jelly because it's only got 13 hit points left. Does that make sense? And then, of course, it would make its attack, and it would only be one attack. And that's it. But you can see that this battle with the ochre jelly is not a huge threat to your party. The chances are it is just a mild nuisance, which means if they never actually encounter the ochre jelly, it's not a big deal. But it will make them feel very powerful and maybe lull them into a sense of security. and confidence that they probably shouldn't. But yeah, you can see that this is probably going to play out very, very quickly. You're probably not even going to get through the second round. And that's just me rolling and using basic attacks. I'm not doing anything special. I'm not really casting big spells or anything like that. And that's still played out that way. Okay, I need some water. Okay. And that is the extent of my demonstration for today in terms of what I will show. Like every time I do this, I'll probably demonstrate something different. And when you guys can actually join me and play through, then I won't have to worry about trying to roll all the dice myself. That would be nice too. Okay. So for those of you who joined me, thank you. I do appreciate it. I think since there are no more questions and no more things to cover, and I really don't think there's anything major that I need to demonstrate other than what I have done today, I think we can kind of call it quits. I am going on holiday, but I will be back, which means that this weekly class will return, so do not fret, do not worry. It will be back. It just won't be back next week. I am going to take that break that I am definitely requiring, and it will allow me to finish building all the other classes that aren't involving the Lost Mine of Phandelver, but it will also mean that the Lost Mine of Phandelver will be all ready to go when I come back from my holidays. So thank you to all of my patrons. Thank you to everybody who super chatted me today. Thank you for everybody who's been watching my content. I do appreciate it. Thank you, TGI Jar. How's it going? I'd also like to just thank, and Helga, I would also like to thank all the people who've been watching my edited videos and going through my back library. It does make a big difference. I'm going to say it right now. Like it's really helpful when the community and I see the same people coming back. Then I know I'm building a stable and a strong community. And this is one of the reasons why I want to finish the Dungeon Master Prep tutorials, because they will help build you past the Lost Mine of Phandelver. They will be an opportunity for you for intermediate to experienced Dungeon Masters to get stuff done. Not just learn stuff, but to actually get stuff done. That's what their intention is. And I'm looking forward to that. So wherever you are in the world, thank you. Whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee early morning. Look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. You're welcome, Chris. And as I said, I will be back in about 3 weeks. Probably the reality is it's 3 weeks. I'm trying to type in thank you and there's no way. This map is so big. I can't even get it on my keyboard. Oh well. See you all in 3 weeks.